Episode 83, Toledo Jeepfest.
I am so tired of people saying age is only a number. That is stupid. It is obviously a word. Yeah, just sit back because this episode's going to be a rough one. Alright, sit back, relax, shut up, get a snack. Set the recliner for full recline. The 10-minute off-road podcast is about to begin. Hello, welcome to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki G. I'm here to inform, entertain, and delight your ear holes with all things off-road for the next 10 minutes or so. Why 10 minutes? Because that's how long it's going to take the guy at the bowling alley to clean my shoes. I got stinky feet. I'd like to remind you, you can listen to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Breaker, CastBox, Pocket Cast, Public Radio, Radio Public, and Stitcher. But never iHeartRadio or Pandora, because they are pricks. Someday I'm going to do that all in one breath. You can contact the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast at 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. That's 10minuteoffroad@gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment on our various social media platforms, with YouTube probably being about the most popular. We have a YouTube channel, the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast YouTube channel, or my own YouTube channel, Nick G. Don't Google Nikki G, it brings up some weird chick. Speaking of which, you can follow the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast and be ignored by the 10 Minute Off-Road Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Sometimes Twitter, but never, ever, ever TikTok. And TikTok nowadays is just getting a little too outrageous. All right, so as of this recording, about a week ago, I went up to the Toledo Jeepfest, had a great time there, met a couple of friends that I met previous years at Toledo Jeepfest, and some people I met in Texas were up there. And, you know, Toledo's is kind of a faraway drive from Texas, which these guys came from all over the United States. So, yes, some were kind of local and some weren't. Now, I'm North Carolina. It took me about a 12-hour drive up there. Google Maps said it would be a 7-hour drive, so I've planned about 8-hour drive, and it turned into a nightmare. But if you haven't been to the Toledo Jeep Fest, I recommend you go if you're into the Jeep thing. If not, if you're just into other off-road vehicles, still go, because, a lot of overlanding and off-road stuff is universal, even though, Jeeps are a specific brand, but it's fun to go. I have a quasi Jeep, being a Jeep Cherokee. So I consider myself a Jeep guy, although I'm not into Wranglers too much. But I gotta tell you, last time I went to Texas, I saw a guy wheeling an old CJ7, I believe it was a 7, bone stock, and that thing did incredible stuff that makes me want to get a Wrangler. I don't want to get the new plasticky ones because although I do love Jeeps, I hate making payments. The only thing in my price range is something old and decrepit. Maybe someday. I'm thinking about future builds. I've got my Jeep right about where I want it, except my overheating issue is still a slight problem. But it's only a problem 2 months out of the year. Rest of the year, it's fine. But anyhow, that's a rabbit hole we'll go down some other day. Back to the Toledo Jeep Fest. Got a few interesting facts. You can go online and find all this stuff if you're interested in it. But off the top of my head, it's held in Toledo, obviously, early August every year. It's hosted by Jeep, Stellantis, and the city of Toledo. And they put on a good show. They cord off a couple of city blocks and have just Jeeps displayed everywhere. There's a big show and shine. They have a parade of about, last year when I went, I want to say it was 2,000 Jeeps. This year is probably more. The parade is awesome because they're people, and they stop in the middle of the parade and they'll stack Jeeps up and they'll put on a show, and it's a lot of fun to see. Takes a couple of hours. Me with my ADHD lost interest very quickly and started walking around looking for food because food is always interesting to me. There's about 60,000 people attended, if that's a word, this year, raising about $5.1 million in revenue for the city of Toledo. And they did not think to share any of that with me. The parking for it, you would think it would be kind of bad, but a friend of mine that was there, he just let us in on a little tip. You sign up for the show and shine, and then you park your Jeep there in the show and shine area, and that pretty much pays for your parking, and you get parking right there at the event. I parked a little bit off site, paid $10 a day for the parking. It wasn't too bad of a walk. It was just, I'd say, about a quarter of a mile walk to get to the event. Bad part is even though I took a screenshot or took a picture of the street sign where I was at, I was on a corner of blah, blah, blah. I still couldn't find my car when I was ready to go. And I spent about 20 minutes wandering around downtown Toledo looking for my vehicle. Finally found it, got on my way. I wasn't worried. I knew in the general vicinity where it was. I counted the sponsors of the Toledo Jeepfest, and it was exactly 100 sponsors. And their sponsors, a lot of them were off-road, a lot of them were automotive and overland related. Some of them were weird ones like Leaf Guard Gutters, and of course the Armed Forces were there. A couple of local restaurants, but it's good to get a big sponsorship behind you because it just tells me that the whole city of Toledo was into making this a pleasurable experience. I counted 39 vendors, but I swear there's more than that. There's vendors from anywhere from overlanding rooftop tents to RV boxes like you put in the back of your pickup trucks and stuff. Anything to shackles to pocket knives. There was a lot of vendors there selling their stuff. I just went for the day on Saturday. A couple of people said that on Sunday the vendors are ready to wheel and deal instead of packing the stuff up. At the Glass City Convention Center, which was like at the center of the show, they had quite a few Jeeps. I counted them, but I lost count, or I can't remember the count. But I want to say off the top of my head, 80 Jeeps, all kinds of Jeeps. Classic from the flat fenders from the military. Some things that the Jeep made for the military that don't even look like Jeeps. A couple of old military ambulances. Some Jeeps that were for the forestry service and fire departments. And then there was a couple of concept Jeeps and then privately owned Jeeps that people built for show. LS swap, I saw a couple of LS swap Jeeps. Even a Jeep hearse, which kind of sounds morbid, but that was there last year too. I didn't take a lot of pictures because I took pictures last year, and all the pictures kind of look carbon copied of this year. I didn't really see anything new, but they had a base camp overland, I won't say exhibition, but that's where I stayed last year when I went there. I spent the night. I just brought a ground tent with me, and they had one of the metro parks that is real close, and it's about a quarter mile walk from this park to downtown to the event. Last year they had a overlanding section for Jeeps with the rooftop tents and overlanding type, and then they had a place for people that were ground camping. And so I stayed there last year. I was the only person that stayed in the ground tent. There's about a dozen people in the overlanding section, and I talked to them, had a good time. This year, I want to say there was about 40 spots for overlanding, and a friend of mine that stayed there said that they sold out, but he didn't see that it was sold out. So people obviously bought tickets and couldn't make it. They have free concerts. This year it was Scotty McCreery and Jeremy Rowe gave free concerts. I don't know if they got paid for their things. If they didn't, thank you for your time. If the event paid for it, I don't see how they could, because this admission to get into this was free. You just walk right in there. Just there weren't no tickets or nothing. Maybe they got it from the vendors paying for their tables. I don't know how much that costs, but maybe we'll look into that for next year.
All right, that's about all the time I have for this week. Stay tuned for next week, where I talk about the Great Smoky Mountain Jeep invasion that's coming up this week. And then the podcast after that, I'm going to talk about the adventures I had getting to each event. Although I haven't gone to the Great Smoky Mountain invasion yet, I'm planning on a nice adventure for the way up there. All right, until next time, this is Nikki G saying, wheel what you got and be happy.